Hello everyone, it's Ren here. Welcome to my room, guys. Hope you're well today. Another form of natural light illuminating my face. Hopefully not too unpleasant. Today we'll be talking a little bit about what it means to disappoint an INFJ, how it is felt by the INFJ, and just try to kind of maybe, disentangle some confusion or some mixed up concepts and try to understand the phenomenon better. Now you can get my book on the INFJ, the link is below, the Ecstatic Soul. You can get it for less than $10. It's been out for 2 years, doing well, very in-depth investigation. Get a copy of my new novel, quite new novel, The Infinite Castle. Rumor has it the main character is an INFJ. Get a copy. You can also support me on Patreon, by the way, it really helps the channel. Thank you so much to my supporters. So, I'm always amused by the thumbnails of some videos on INFJs on YouTube that often do very well in terms of numbers. Often it's all in capital letters and it says why you should never betray an INFJ, or why you should never disappoint an INFJ, because you'll suffer from everlasting torment as a result of the door slam or whatever. Of course, these trade on some cliches and mythological attributes, but the very fact that, if you like, this is a recurring theme around the INFJ type and that it generates this level of interest, of course, tends to suggest that there is still some level, there is a grain of truth planted in this wider ocean of, you might call, bombast or exaggeration. It's true that, and I cannot speak for other types because I am not, any other type than INFJ, but it's true that for an INFJ, the phenomenon of being disappointed is a complex one. And I've, tried to explain before through concepts such as the concept of NI banishment, how the INFJ dorsam is better understood as something that really takes place via NI, and FE is almost just the executing function in terms of putting it in place, and that it's not so much a dorsam in the sense that you'll often still be part of the INFJ's life. You just will be made to feel like you're not quite occupying the part that you were occupying before that. If you like, there's a demotion. You're discredited, but it will never or hardly ever be said explicitly to you. And there won't even be any kind of ill feeling or hatred. In some sense, what happens as a result of an INFJ being disappointed and having time to reflect on it and confirming that the disappointment is indeed present and not just a product of their overthinking or, having gone through an insecure time that maybe made it more likely for them to feel slighted and disappointed. And, we INFJs might come to see things in perspective. But I'm supposing that, in this particular instance, there is a real case of being deeply disappointed. There is a certain sense of being demoted in status, losing your status, So there's a readjustment of the INFJ's priorities in regard to you. This is what happens, usually. And it can be felt to be painful for the other person because they feel powerless in the face of the inevitability of that adjustment, but also powerless to even call it out because there's something kind of really ineluctable and about it, and it's hard to quite, it's done in a way that is subtle, so that it's hard to even call out the INFJ for doing it, because on the surface they're still being nice to you. This has led some people, of course, to call that an insidious form of door slamming. It's becoming as a concept, the infamous door slam. being, the signature move of the INFJ. Now, it's not insidious from the INFJ's perspective. It's a necessary adjustment that happens often at the back of our minds. Really, it's often we don't notice it. We may occasionally notice that that's happening, but often we don't even notice it. The reason why I think, and again this is connected to the concept of anti-banishment, is having the NI function and having the NI function connected to the FE function. In some way or other, I'm not sure that I can quite articulate it completely at this stage. Need to think about it more, need to research it more, perhaps explore this theme, or certainly explore this theme more in my next book on the INFJ. But INFJs have a holistic mind, if you like. If you conceive of your mind as a collection of, you could conceive of the mind as a collection of brain states. But if you think in slightly more mentalistic terms, you could conceive of your mind in terms of a collection of propositions, a collection of concepts and propositions that could be, for the majority of them, put down as sentences. Some sentences will be more metaphorical if they, tend to accrue more to the ani side of things, the vision of the archetype side of things, and they will be more literally interpretable propositions. But you can sort of conceive a person's state of mind as a collection of those sentences that describe the states of mind, and beliefs and values. They all interlock. Some people, and I think probably some types, tend to have more atomistic minds, in such a way that these minds, and I'm thinking more so of the SI-NE axis or NE-SI axis, you get like a collection of states, or again, propositions that you could put down as sentences. All these concepts and beliefs, they're aggregated together, but they exist as, with the exception of probably like the very core, as collections that are aggregated atomistically, so that you can take one out and it doesn't necessarily change anything. It's the atomism of the mind in the case of the NESI or SI-NE axis. The NISE axis, particularly when it's very marked, like in the case of an INFJ, and no doubt in the case of an INTJ too, because INTJs are notorious for doing the very same thing, except not via FE. You get something that I call holistic, in the sense that there is an interdependency of the states / concepts and beliefs / propositions that you could put down as sentences if you wanted to provide an analysis. Of course, it would be impossible to do because there's billions of them. But you have to imagine that it's a web of belief that is not just linked around the core, but is completely interlinked. The consequence of this is that if you have a change in a particular mind state or concept or belief, there needs to be an adjustment of everything else in order for the whole to survive as a coherent set, right? Now, suppose that you experience as an INFJ being disappointed, sincerely disappointed. Often you don't communicate about it in the first place, not only because, or not mainly because you intend to be very insidiously passive-aggressive or some such. This might happen more likely in the case of an FE lead, because an FE lead is often just immediately aware of being slighted and of what they're going to do to take revenge or to, exact some sort of retribution, or not, but at least they'll sort of click quickly. INFJ is introverted first. They need to kind of first recognize that sometimes these events can almost be experienced as existential threats. It's like you question an expectation, you disappoint someone, so you call into question an expectation. Again, this expectation is a belief, a concept, a proposition. It turns out to be falsified since the friend has disappointed us. So this belief no longer holds. But if this belief no longer holds, it threatens the whole, since, as I have hypothesized, the INFJ mind is so deeply holistic. So there needs to be an adjustment for the whole to survive. Often, usually in the case of holism, the adjustment takes place by means of accommodating this falsified belief that we had, this expectation that was disappointed, by changing, adjusting other beliefs, right, in our web of belief. In the case of the friend who is discredited, if you like, the friend who's demoted, the demotion happens as a result of this adjustments in our beliefs. Simply like what we thought our friends represented is modified to accommodate the change, to keep the whole entire and unscathed. And often the concepts that will have to be adjusted are the concepts that refer to our friend's status as a person who is worthy of X, Y, and Z. The friend remains in our circle, maybe not quite the same friend, not quite the same level of friendship, but remains in there. But first, the disappointment is experienced as a kind of existential threat. And if you like, the passive aggression that is sometimes leveled at INFJs is right insofar as it really is experienced as such by other people. And there's no point trying to rob these people of that experience. It's important that, because also passive aggression can be very difficult to deal with and can be very destructive. So it's not about pretending that doesn't happen or it's not experienced as such. But from the INFJ perspective, you have to understand a lot of this stuff, web of belief, happens. The adjustments are often automatic. It's not something that just, is the result of intense deliberation all the time, because it'd be way too tiring, and there's millions and millions of concepts and beliefs in our minds, and I does the adjusting automatically. Certainly the execution is done via FE as usual, and that can reinforce the idea of passive aggression, but it's fundamentally just a response to NI, a response of NI to an existential threat, because of the holism of the INFJ mind. It has to remain with a concept of itself that is coherent to itself and makes sense. And the adjustments it makes often result in this kind of ineluctable, invisible demotion of the person and their status, which they experience as a door slam. And that's what can be experienced as violent. Anyway, that's what it means for an INFJ to be disappointed. It's complex, and I tried to provide a slightly deeper analysis than maybe you'll come across online. The principle of this book is to go into such analyses, so if you're interested and you haven't got it yet, check it out. Okay, guys, have a lovely Sunday. I hope it's as nice as it is here, and I will see you next Wednesday. Maybe some shorts before that. Don't forget my Patreon page. Bye-bye.